When I heard I'd won this award, I cast a look at the list of the previous winners, and I saw this astonishing name just mentioned by Dave here. This first award was given in the year of my birth, in fact, and the recipient was a Turkish journalist, Ahmet Emin Yalman. He'd been tried for his newspaper articles, just like me, survived an assassination attempt, just like me. He had to go into exile, just like me. His newspaper faced government oppression, just like mine. And he won the Golden Pen of Freedom Award, just like me. Nothing has changed for journalists in more than a half century in Turkey. Dear guests, I come from Turkey, the biggest prison for journalists in the world. My colleagues are either in prison or have been silenced. Anyone who makes a stand does so at risk of life. I'm trying to make their voice heard by you, by the whole world. I've been a journalist for 37 years now. This is the hardest period of time in my professional career. I was a journalist under military rule too, but was not imprisoned, shot at, or forced into exile. Erdogan frequently says, we came to power fighting against the headlines. This is true. When he did come to power 15 years ago, it was despite and perhaps because of opposition from nearly the entire body of the media. He convinced a section of Turkish liberals and of European public opinion that he was a moderate Islamist. In time, and emboldened by his own power, the moderate varnish peeled away, leaving behind the Islamist identity. And he set about obliterating or seizing any and all obstacles in his way. The army, parliament, the opposition, capital, academia, the judiciary, and the media. The last one was the easiest. Erdogan seized control of the media in 3 moves. The opening move was to bring the mainstream media down to its knees through punitive tax fines, thereby forcing them to sell their newspapers and TV channels. The Gülenist media were either closed down or seized under appointed administration. These media outlets were then sold to crony businessmen under public tender, ostensibly under public tender, thereby creating a dedicated media army that first served as a shield and now as a weapon. He has then subjugated the few remaining opposition media outlets through heavy prison sentences and censorship. Currently, as it's mentioned, 150 journalists are behind bars in Turkey. That the climate of fear created by the imprisonment of one journalist silenced hundreds of others is also a fact. This strategy made Erdogan the biggest media mogul in Turkey. We now have to fight against not only him, but also his troll army and his media. In other words, we are fighting against the headlines. Dear guests, 4 years ago, the new owner of my newspaper, where I was a columnist, announced at the first editorial meeting that he no longer wanted to read anti-Erdogan comments in his paper. A few months later, I was sacked. After a while, recordings of his phone conversations with Erdogan came to light. He was first asking, "How did I upset you, boss?" Then wailing, "Why the heck did I get into this business?" Another new media mogul declared, "The more I see Erdogan's mettle, the more I fall in love with him. I'd happily sacrifice my children for him. He won the armored vehicle tender for the armed forces and the police. The rewards of love. The closer they got to the government, the more they won. The only losers of this win-win deal are the readers, viewers, and journalists. At present, of the 10 most popular TV channels and newspapers, 7 belong to crony businessmen. The truth has become impossible either to write or to read. Investigates corruption files for Erdogan, criticizes floundering foreign policy or march towards dictatorship, and you are risking prison. My newspaper had been doing just that when the entire board of its foundation, editor-in-chief, 3 columnists, and even cartoonists were arrested in a morning raid. They have been behind bars for 220 days now without having seen a judge once. The number 1 suspect of this case is me. I'm accused of changing the editorial policy of the paper. We are talking about a country where a prosecutor defines editorial policy. Dear guests, Winston Churchill defines democracy as the regime that when there's a knock on the door at 3 a.m., it's probably the milkman. In Turkey, we know that it's probably the police. When freedom is part of your life, like air or water, you take it for granted. It's only when you see just how fragile it is or how quickly it can be lost that you realize you have to fight for it. I suspect my American colleagues have just become aware of this point. Today, we fight for a country where it's only the milkman who knocks at the door at dawn. We defend democracy, freedom of press, and the secularism by risking our lives. I accept this award in the name of my colleagues who are engaged in this struggle, and ask for your support, hoping one day to hold this meeting in free Turkey.